Hey guys, here's another great freebie for you. OldSkoolVerb from Voxengo. It's a really good little reverb and it's completely free. They just updated it to something like version 2.6, I think it was. I'm getting sounds out of the box straight away from this thing I'm not getting from my other reverbs. Very good indeed. It gives you lovely old plates and the sort of breaking up, fluttery, sort of artifact rich sound of very early digital units, etc. It's very, very nice indeed. So let's just quickly go through the presets, and as I do it for each preset I'm going to have to adjust the dry wet controls here because I've got it on an auxiliary return, and I'm feeding the snare into it from that reggae jam that I put together when I did a live lockdown session a couple of weeks ago. So starting out with the default preset, here we go. Bright Studio. Warm Hall. In Your Face. Plate reverb. The plates are very nice in this. Very metallic, very dark, like a really old 140 type sound. This one's quite narrow. The width is turned down almost halfway. Small space, quite reduced time. Lots of whiplash on it, you know. Grand Hall. Oh, lovely fluttery decay. Empty Stage. Yeah, a lot of pre-delay on this, time right down at 200 milliseconds and a bigger space. Monoverb does what it says on the tin, it's straight down the middle with the width reduced a lot. Wide plate, again, does what it says on the tin, it's a plate with lots of width. Smooth reverb. Spatial plate. Lots of whiplash on that, you know. Nice Hall. Drum Room. Master Mix Reverb. School Gym, really like this one. It's got that very high-end sort of icing sugar fizz, just like if you're in a big sports hall and you shut the storage room door, and after a big pre-delay you get that coming back. Lovely. Big reflective room. Vintage plate. Very good, the plates. I love the plates. Oh, that's fantastic. And notice the mode here is in old, but is there different modes? Let's just turn the time down that bit. Oh, that's beautiful. Deep reverb. Ooh, lovely stuff. Old School Singer is more of an ambient preset. And back to default. Now, as I said, I had to set the dry wet level for each preset as I went through them to match being on an auxiliary return. But the thing about this is that once you've done that, you then go through the presets and it remembers your settings. Even if you close the plugin and then reopen it later, it remembers all the settings you've set, including the output. But I would suggest to Voxengo that it would be a good idea to either do an update where you set the dry wet output and it remains like that as you go through all presets, or you offer the presets in send and insert banks, and obviously in the send banks the output dry would be completely muted and the reverb up full. Okay, so it's a great little plugin, completely free. You got your presets, you can of course save your own. There's an A-B comparison here, and you can copy from A to B or from B to A. This switch, I believe, because the manual doesn't give pictures, is the all sample rates button, I think. Okay. And then over here are the preferences. I've got it set to 175% scaling. In Logic, I don't know about other DAWs, you can't drag it bigger, and it's a horizontal, quite small plugin at 100%. I like my plugins bigger, so first thing I did was go here, set it bigger. You can also choose different color schemes. You can even get in and edit the color of every single part of the plugin if you want. And you've got software settings here, things like the mouse wheel precision, etc., etc. And what I did is I set the UI scale, then went save. I just saved it in the root folder for my plugins, and every time after that it just opens at this size. And by the way, there are other plugins being promoted here. There are a couple of other freebies they do. One of them is a linear EQ. I can't remember which it is, but get over to their site, get this one, and have a look around, because there's at least one other free plugin they do, which is an EQ. Oh, it's a I know what it is. It's a graphic. Where is it? Is it here? It's a free graphic EQ, but I don't see it here. Although they do have a lot of plugins. No, I don't see it. Well, there is, anyways, at least one other freebie you can pick up. If you don't know Voxengo, they've been around absolutely yonks. Very, very well established and highly respected. Okay, so yeah, so that's the preferences and everything. And then here's your reverb parameters. Pre-delay, the space, which is the actual room space or chamber space, the time, and the width. And then these modes, they do make a difference. Then you've got your damping for the reflections, high and low damping, and this EQ. It doesn't say that it's after the reverb, but it must be a mid, low and high EQ. Wet and dry amount. But there's an additional thing here on this cogwheel, the reverb mode editor, and you can save mode presets independently of actual presets. Now it's a little bit on paper, the description of these is fairly easy to understand. Makeup gain, right? Cross gain is, cross gain between left-right channels. The op count is the amount of operators being used in the algorithms. The lower it is, if you want very, very sort of breaking up, sort of cheap early digital reverb type sounds, go for a very low operator count. For something smoother, go higher. But the more you go up, the more CPU you're using. But the volume ramp, the delay ramp, and the length ramp, you're gonna have to experiment with those. The manual, which I've got here, there is a manual, says that the volume ramp parameter affects the overall reverb spatialization, and positive values produce reversed reverb. The delay ramp affects the reverb's pre-delay spatialization, and the length ramp affects the reverb's density. So you know, you just best get it and mess with that. And this log up, log down, it says, where is it? It says it somewhere. Oh, the ramp type behavior adjusts the internal behavior of all the ramp parameters. You'll just have to mess with this. Okay. So yeah, it's look, for example, if let's go through to default. I'm going to set a 50% time and a decent width, and this is all pretty vanilla. And turn the pre-delay down and turn the time up a bit, and then we just mess with the space here. We're in default for the mode, right? Right, if I turn the time down, it's quite a small whiplashy type space. Turn the space up. Yeah, you hear even though pre-delay I haven't adjusted it, you hear those reflections coming back later and later. The early reflections. So you can go with a small size and a large time, and you get a quite artificial hall, a very narrow type hall sound, or a larger space with a smaller time, and you get almost an ambience. Yeah. Nice, huh? Pre-delay. Etc. But if I go for like this space and this time, yeah, these modes do make a difference. So if we go for like, you know, a decent sized space, decent sized time, not too much pre-delay. Then I switch to old. It gets much more fluttery and breaky uppy. Deep. It's just sort of richer. Slap back. Sort of a lot more body in the early and middle reflections or something. You know what I mean? You just have to mess with it. Anyway, look, there it is. It's a cracking little reverb, and it's completely free. So I've only shown it on the snare, which is kind of useful because it's a very percussive sound. But it's gonna, you know, it's a great little reverb. I'm sure it'll be great on things like vocals, brass, guitars, all sorts of things. Yeah, but it really does give you sounds straight out of the box before you even get into tweaking it. I'm not getting these sounds. I'm not a huge user of third-party reverbs. I tend to go with Logic stock reverbs. But I do use the IK Multimedia T-Rex plate and hall a fair bit, particularly the plate. I'm also a huge fan of the SAR 1R, the cheap little basic reverb from Softube, which I pretty much use exclusively just for pre-delay. And I'm also a huge fan of the IK Multimedia T-Rex Sunset Sound. It's a plugin that does room simulations, plus all the chambers, the plates, and the spring reverb from the Sunset Sound Studio using really, really accurate convolutions. That reverb is absolutely epic, and room simulator and all the rest of it. But this thing is giving me sounds out of the box that I'm not getting from other reverbs. It's very good indeed. It just, as I said, it gives you great plates, really good plates, and a sort of variety of sounds of the really old school, very early digital reverbs. Almost on some of them, it's like a crossover between something like a very late analog reverb from someone like Yamaha crossed with a very early digital reverb from somebody like Korg or Ibanez or something. You know what I mean? Or Roland or Boss. Lots and lots of character, fantastic stuff. So get over to Voxengo and get it. Old School Verb. Hope that's useful.